It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Tuesday, January 23rd, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Provi in the media, the practical word study, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. Whew. All right, everyone, how are you doing? Yes, it is Tuesday. We're getting into the meat of the week. Hope you guys had amazing pre-dawn service. Hope you guys are enjoying your week thus far. Lots and lots of things to think about, talk about, and do. Don't forget, we have Q&A Thursday every week, so get those questions ready and send them to me whenever you can. And if you haven't yet, for today's episode 1006, leave a like and comment to build our community. Just super happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. This week's Sunday message title, two of them, He Answers Through Your Heart, and the promises of the old time period fulfilled through the new time period. All right, so it is Tuesday. For me, I'm not sure why, but no, I'm not. It's not even that busy. It's like 11:40 a.m. right now at this time. I just did my laundry and actually prepared this while doing my laundry. Yeah, I didn't realize I got to the end of my roll. I do need to do my laundry desperately, so I went out, prepared, did my laundry, stuff like that too. But yeah, lots of things to discuss today, and I'm very happy and excited. Something new for you guys right now. I didn't think I would be. I asked and requested from you guys yesterday. I didn't think that it would come so soon, but here is an audio feedback, of the topic I was talking yesterday about marriage and stuff, right? And for me, I really love that there is discussion, right? That people are able to speak up about what is on their mind. Just the fact that someone is actually sending me, when people put up a comment, it lets me know that they're listening, and it lets me know that they have certain things on their mind too, and I love it, right? I love that people are speaking up what's on their mind. Now, this is Miri. She's a doctor in New York, very bright, intelligent. I have a funny story about her too. Well, I'm not sure if she knows this story. There's one time when when Sunsi was visiting at the time, I think it was the Whitestone or Lord's Church. I forget which one it was, but Sunsi was on stage, like doing, like chiropractor stuff, like helping up with your hips and stuff like that too. And she was in front of me. Okay. And if you guys don't know Miri, I think Miri is like 6 feet tall. She's tall. Okay. So, Sunsi, she towers over Sunsi. And, Sunsi's asking her, oh, where's the problem? This, and this. And I don't know what the conversation was. And she gets up on the table, and it's in front of everyone. It's in the main sanctuary. He's on the pulpit doing this, fixing the bones and stuff like that too, right? Okay. So, there was one moment he had to lift her leg over, right? And, she's much, much taller than Sunsim, right? Sunsim is kind of a small stature of a man. And when he tried to move her leg over, I don't know if she heard this. So Miri, you could tell me if you heard this or not. But everyone started laughing because Sunsim said, oh, too much meat and cheese. Right? Because, the Western people are so much, they're just bigger than Asians in general. And Sunsi always talks about it's because they eat meat and cheese, right? So when he tried to move her leg over, and, she's so much taller than him, right? That he's like, oh, too much meat and cheese. And everyone started laughing. I don't know if she heard him say it or not, but it was just one of those, it was one of those funny Sunsi moments and stuff like that too. But bright, intelligent. If you haven't met her, her heart is on fire for this history, even though she's a doctor. She's crazy schedule. She gives as much time as she can for this history. And this is why I am actually even more grateful that even in her crazy busy schedule, she's able to do an audio, right? So this is a response to the discussion. This is a discussion topic of yesterday when we're talking about marriage, when I was talking about marriage stuff and the purpose of creation, right? So let's get into this audio.
Hi, Pastor Sky and everyone at MSD 117.8. This is Mary from New York Word Church. Congratulations on 1,000 episodes. I did not get to wish you a congratulations yet. So amazing, amazing work, amazing consistency, amazing work of the Trinity, especially the fact that I think you mentioned you started on 3:16 and then ended on the last day of giving glory to God. So truly the Trinity's timing. So big congratulations for that. Thank you so much also for your very thought-provoking discussion on episode, 1005. I was just listening and you encouraged comments and feedback. And so I've been meaning to send more comments and feedback. I don't often get the chance, but I happen to have a moment. So I thought I would just send back some food for thought. So I thought you made some really interesting points about, the decrease in the birth rate in society. The fact that people are kind of, society might die out. We're not going to have children in the future. And the importance of getting married for sustaining that. So I definitely agree with a lot of that. I think the one thing I would caution is saying, first of all, I don't know that any of us can assume a number of what percentage of people will get married and stay faith stars or whatever it will be called in the future. I would never hazard a guess for numbers. I know you said 0.2%. It could be more than that because you have to remember as the population grows, there will always need to be leaders. And similar to what you said, yes, of course, married people can be leaders as well, but the same way they also can't really pursue a career quite as much. It's a little harder to run full time if you are married. And so I would say that it's hard to say. Of course, the huge majority will be people that are married. I think it's a little dangerous to put numbers out there. And I think also it's very, very important for people to know, exactly like you said, to not attempt to remain single just to fulfill your own dreams. But I don't think that everyone should also assume that God's only dream and will for them is to get married. As you know, well, I'm sure have taught this lesson hundreds, maybe even thousands of times. Yes, obviously the primary purpose of creation is for us to rapture and become God's counterparts of love spiritually. And yes, I 100% agree that we need to fulfill after an individual level history of heaven on earth to do the same at a family level. The only thing is I would counsel and remember that it's not only physically, right? You being a faith star, for any other faith stars out there, that's an important thing for people to discern. I think people also could get trapped thinking that the will for them might be marriage if it's not. I think it's probably many more the opposite, but just, telling everyone that God's will for you is to get married it reminds me a lot of KJS. So just, we got to be careful with counseling people too much in one direction. I think it's important to remind everyone to pray and be sure that you are doing what God's will is for you, whatever that might be. We also don't want to teach like Unification Church, right? Like God's number one purpose of creation is for you to get married and have kids, right? That's not actually the primary purpose of creation. The primary purpose of creation is to be God's counterparts of love. And we fulfill that at a family level on this earth. That can be through having spiritual children. That can be through evangelizing your physical family, not only getting married and having kids, although I agree that is the case for the majority of people. Just want to be careful and making sure we are balanced and showing both sides. So that was just the point that came up as I was listening. But otherwise, I 100% agree. We, do not want to have Providence people die out. And so I think, honestly, right, isn't it to our benefit if all of society is dying out because no one wants to have kids because they're all fulfilling their own dreams, then we can also have a lot of physical children also and take over the world that way. But it's still important to have people be leading churches in the future, right, and lecturing and having spiritual children as well. So just to maintain the balance. But anyway, thank you so much for your hard work and love and dedication always. And have a great day, everyone on the podcast. Bye-bye.
And that was so awesome. I am so thankful and grateful. Yes, Miri, wonderful points. I loved how you talked about the points you liked and also the points that I'm not saying that you disagreed with, but you're like, yeah, I don't think we should be cautious about this. And I think that was a really great way of putting it. And I would say there's, more than not, everything she said there, I agree with. And I'm hoping, but I guess it didn't sound like that. That was my whole point is like the vast majority are going to be going down that one direction of marriage, like the vast majority, right? And yeah, there's going to be the very few, as I said, the vast majority will get married, and very few are going to go down the road, like going down the road of not getting married. Now, for me, I guess the big caveat that I would say is that not just because you're not married doesn't mean, just because you don't get married doesn't mean you are a star, right? I do think that there will be people that don't want to get married, and I understand that, right? I do think it's very few, like a very small percentage of people. But that's why I wanted to make sure that I said almost all, right? That's why I said almost all should or should be getting into a family, almost all, right? That's why I said about 95% probability will go in that direction. One interesting point that I thought was bringing up a percentage, okay? So the percentage is going to be like, oh, do you really think it's going to be 0.2 in the end? I think it's going to just get closer and closer to zero when it comes to stars. When it comes to stars, I'm not talking about people who are getting married, like not choosing not to get married. I do think that as the 1,000 years go by, the percentage of stars is going to always get closer and closer to zero without hitting zero, because you're going to have more and more people come. But the reason I say this is because the last time I heard Sunseem talk about stars, and this was in 2018 or 2019, Sunseem said that there will be no more stars after he dies. I don't know what that actually means, to be honest. He says there's no more stars, which means that I don't know what that means. Maybe he's not going to have, like, maybe it was only for this time right now, or, Sunseem is not there, obviously, to, approve of a star. I don't know what that means, but from the last time I heard Sunseem talk about stars, like specifically stars, not about people who don't get married, like altogether, but stars, after he dies, there won't be any more stars. Right? Which does mean the percentage will go down as time passes, right? Now, can things change? Absolutely. Sunseem can discuss with God, and a new direction could come out, but that's the latest one that I've heard. And, I'm only going off of the info that we have right now. And, if I look at repeating history, I do think that there will be those that forego marriage for God's history. I think that's going to be pretty natural too, right? Now, for me, I hope I didn't sound like I was saying, everyone, you have no choice. I hope I wasn't saying that. So, Miri, what you said actually makes me reflect on myself and reflect on what I said. I'm hoping that I'm not telling or pushing people that they have to, right? Because that's why I was trying my best. Like obviously, everyone's going to be thinking and praying. But as you pointed out too, the vast majority are going to be going down that direction, right? And I would say, we're looking probably a good 90% will go down that direction, which means it's going to hold true. And for very few will actually not get married or even make that decision, right? So for me, just making the statement by stating that not all, but say 90+% will get married, I don't know if that's going to be a bad way of putting it, but I can see how it may look like I'm telling everyone they have to get married. Right? Yesterday, one of the big points I was talking about is people probably I don't think we may not have realized or understood the purpose of creation deeply enough, right? Because here's the thing that I would say, I would say that we were kind of the opposite in the past. Now, how so? There was a time, and I don't know if you guys will remember, you can comment about this, but tell me, for me, this is true to me. So, Miri, it might not be true to you, might not be true to other people there, but there was a time when everyone wanted to be a star. Wasn't there a time like that? It was so, for me, I just remember there was this time, every church I went to, we're trying to find stars. You know what I mean? To find face stars, evangelize and make them a star. That's what it really felt like at one point. And everyone knew, and Sunseem talked so deeply about the stars and running for this history and this and that. It was the greatest path, this. Everyone understood that, and everyone was fighting to become a star. And some people even left Providence because they were rejected from becoming a star. And I think that is more abnormal than what I'm talking about right now. Because I say that's more abnormal because you're talking a very small percentage of people that will actually become stars, but it becomes the number one thing and everyone wants to become one. It became a trend, right? I think marriage is not a trend. I think marriage is like the natural process of life. And it's part of God's purpose of creation, both on the physical and spiritual. Spiritual end, obviously, we become the counterparts of love, and we want to evangelize. Physically, this is how we, bring the kingdom of God on earth. It's not going to all happen through evangelism. It's just not, right? So, like remember I brought this statistic or this from Massimo Introvigne, who studies new religious movements, and he says a new religious movement will eventually become mainstream when more than 50% of the people joining church are born into the church and not evangelized. Or they're not converts. This is when you become mainstream. Why? Because it's self-sustainable. If you're sustained only by evangelism, think about what happened over the COVID time. Very few people evangelized over the COVID time, which means all the churches were hurt. There's no growth. Campus is really small now. Like you go to a lot of churches in a lot of countries. Why is a campus so small? Because we had 4 years, like 3.5 years of this COVID, right? And then on top of it, we had 2023 and our evangelism just tanked. So what happens? Well, we have 4 years where all these campus people have graduated and we have very, very few people on campus right now. And if you rely strictly on conversion, this is where a church is, we are kind of susceptible to what's happening in society at that time, right? So I think it was very abnormal for us to push so much towards stars because it's a very, very small percentage, right? Where the vast majority, I think we'll all agree on this, the vast majority are going to be married and have families, right? That is not a trend. That is kind of normal part of life, right? It's going to be the vast majority, and it will hold true until the end of the 1,000 years. It's kind of a normal thing, part of the purpose of creation, God's will for us to make heaven on earth in this manner. So I think the good point that Miri really, really brought up and pointed out very clearly, and I think that's something I need to point out even more clearly, is the vast majority will go to marriage and having a family. But yeah, there will be those that is not the will for them, right? It's not going to be the will for them, and they're going to run, right? And they're going to run for this history, or some of them just don't want to get married, right? So yeah, I think that's, just making sure everyone gets that point. Now, I think there's personally one point that I would stay away from, right? Which is when points become more emotional. Right? So the one point that I'd say was a little bit too emotional would be that it sounds like too much like KJS. Okay? So we just got over 2023. This type of comment is more emotional. That can sway people, not because of the content of the statement, but because people reflect back at 2023 and remember what she did, right? And it's like, oh no, we don't want this to happen again. But, we can also look back and we can't really say 100% that 100% of everything she did was wrong either, right? We can't say that either. So I think we need to stay away from, it's good to stay away from like those types of emotional points, like it sounds too much like KJS. And let me tell you why. I think discussion should be based on the merit of the content, but let me tell you why. The only reason I'm saying this is because I don't want to be in the same category as her. That's all. I'm going to prove my point. There's a difference between KJS's statement and my statement, okay? So the statement I made that the vast majority of people should get married is true. It's true. It's going to hold true. If you look 10,000 years in the past, 10,000 years in the future, that's going to hold true, right? Vast majority means most, but not all, okay? So mine is true. The difference, and what I talk about is not a new direction. Like going to the blessing, getting married, having a family, the physical purpose of creation, that is not a new direction. It's something that we've learned, right? It's not against anything that we have learned from Sunsteam in the past about the purpose of creation and marriage, right? Now, KJS's statement of like, I'm assuming she's talking about stars should all get married, is very different because it is a different direction than what we have learned. And it is also a lie. When she told, when I had a meeting with KJS with all the male face stars, she told us 2 years ago that Sunsanim wanted the male stars to get married, which is a lie, right? And we all know from that message on September 17th. So this would be a huge difference in context of what KJS said and what I am saying, and I think they are nothing close to each other, because what I'm saying is true in the past, true now, and it's going to hold true in the future, that the vast majority will get married, right? Not all, the vast majority. And it's everything we've learned all our lives throughout Providence about the purpose of creation. So it's not new direction, it's not new. What KJS did was lying about what Sunsim said and going in a new direction, what we know about stars, right? So that's why I would say that this sounds a bit KJS, is a little bit more emotional and not in context. And that's why I'm bringing that up, right? And I think it's something that we do have to, when it comes to, we're learning about, if you guys go to debate school, that people are going to bring up certain types of arguments, and some of them, we have to be able to judge the content, judge the discussion by the content more than, something that could be a little bit more on the emotional side. Of course, emotional side can be used if it has like the proper stats and stuff behind it, or if it's a true comparison. So I would say that's one thing that I would stay away from. But I do understand. I also understand what she is saying, because it is true. It's true. 100% is not going to get married. 100% will not get married. That is 100% true, right? There will be a very small group of people that choose not to, right? Some will choose not to. Some will become stars, right? But, from the last thing, like I said before, is there will be no stars after Sunsim dies, from the last time I heard, right? So my point is that there is only going to be a very few people, and the vast majority will get married, and people's hearts and minds should understand deeply and correctly of why they should get married, the purpose of creation, starting a family, right? So I think that is that's like, I think we're pretty much in agreement with most of the things too, right? The second point, I think this needs a ton of discussion, like a ton of discussion. And I think this is a great discussion topic that Miri brought up, because she said that if we don't have people that choose not to get married, right? I never said everyone should, but she said, if everyone gets married, then who would be running for the churches? And I would say this is a big discussion, right? So once again, reiterate, I did not say everyone's going to get married. I said a vast majority. But the point brought up is, if all people get married, then who will run the churches? And I would say this is a huge topic of discussion that you guys can bring up. Either send me an audio file, or you can, and guys, you can send an audio file talking about what Miri said too. That's great. Put it in the comments too. So this is a great topic, right? Right? Which, like I said, once again, as Miri said, if all people get married, who's going to be running for the churches? Because if you're married, you won't have enough time, or you won't be able to focus. First thing I would say is, and she brought this up too, is can only non-married people be leaders? And the answer is no. There are married leaders right now. Even now in Korea, there are more and more married leaders, right? Especially when it comes to the large churches that have tons of families in their churches. And if history repeats itself, looking at Christianity, let's take a look at this. Eventually, when we become mature in our system and organization, being a head leader is a literal career. It's a real career. So what am I looking at? Look at Christianity. Almost all, if not all, Christian pastors of churches are married. They are families. The family is leading the church. And, even though they're married, they're focused on the church. They can lead churches. Every mega church has a leader that is married, and the wife is also part of leading the church, right? So my question would be very interesting is like, hey, when you look at the future even of Christianity, right? A lot of the monks and nuns were from the Catholic times, right? So monks and nuns were from the Catholic times at the beginning of history, the early church and moving forward. But eventually, when the Reformation came in, almost every leader is married. Like, it's preferred that the head leaders are married, head pastors are married. The interesting thought process would be, will providence eventually move towards that direction, just like the New Testament time, that when we grow bigger and more organized, everything will be organized and systematically done so well that it becomes a real career that can support a family, right? Like right now, it makes sense because we're moving pastors around every 3 years. And if you're married, you can't move around every 3 years, right? Right now, we can't pay our pastors enough to support a family. And this is why the wife is going out to work, or the head leader has a side job, side hustle, or something along that line, because we just don't have the system or organization for that. The interesting thought process is going to be is, will history repeat itself, which it normally does, where even in Christianity, it started off with monks and nuns, and then it turned into the Reformation, and for the last 400 years, everyone's married. All the leaders are married, right? That's a very interesting topic of thought, right? And I would say we would have to look at the pros and cons of a married pastor and a non-married pastor. I think it's going to be a really interesting topic because I could see arguments on both sides that we could discuss. Right? And that's why this is a great part about discussion is we talk about each other's points. I love it. On top of it, right, we're really, really able to kind of other points come out where we're like, oh, that's a great topic to discuss too. It is. And I think it's a great topic for us also is, personally, if we had my thoughts, as we slowly move into that discussion, I guess in the future would be, once we have the entire system made ready, where let's say that, yeah, you're gonna, if you become a head leader, you'll be making enough money to support a family, right? That even your wife can be part of the leadership. Like what's happening in Christianity today is the pastor's wife plays such a huge role in the church, right? So that's an interesting topic, right? And I think great job. It's an awesome beginning of a discussion. And I am so thankful that Miri is the first to jump on it, right? Like I said, much respect to her. She's a doctor, super busy, and just finding time to talk about this and putting it into an audio, I don't think it's easy to find time for her to find time either. But I am super grateful and thankful for her. And everyone out there, if you have something you want to put into the discussion, go ahead, record it, or you can put in the comments. I will just, you know me, I talk about comments too, and I would love to hear. Unless you have something you want to talk about what Miri said, or about a newer topic about what about in the future when it comes to leaders being married or not, because from and what Miri sent was just kind of a short. It wasn't a long. It's not long form discussion, so obviously she's not giving us her full details, but just from what it sounded like, it's like, hey, if everyone gets married, who's gonna run for the churches? And and she made it sound like if you're married, you won't have enough time. You're gonna have other things that you need to worry about, so you can't put your full and all into becoming a full-time head leader, right? And that's where the discussion comes from. And I'm not gonna say that's what she's actually saying because she couldn't, she's not fully expanding on everything she's talking about, but it's a great topic, right? It's a great topic. And one thing I want to tell you guys is when I look at this world today, especially when you look at Western countries, which is probably where a lot of the problems are happening, politics is dividing a lot of people, and there's no room for discussion. You're either on one side or the other. But, what I love about this podcast is, no, we're all on the same side. And it's just great discussion. It's great discussion. I really, my lesson is from Marcus Aurelius, who was the Roman emperor, and he had a slave that was always with him. And this slave's sole duty was to continuously tell Marcus Aurelius, "You are only human," which basically meant that, hey, even though you're an emperor, you're still human. You're not God, right? And my lesson from that is no one is God and no one has full information, and we should always have our ears open to what other people are saying because you're going to learn something new, right? I'll give my opinion from the facts that are presented to me and what I know. But I also know that there is so much more to learn and so much more to understand. And this is why when it comes to people coming in and chiming in on the discussion, love it. very open to all your feedback. I think it's awesome, right? So what a great beginning. I think this is a great beginning to some of these discussions. I hope you guys can record and put those things into, right? And you can send me either audio or you can write it in the comments. Either is going to be helpful, and I'm going to be very, very grateful and thankful for that too. All right? Yeah, awesome time. I loved it. Thank you so much, Miri, once again. Today, we do have the practical word study and then Provi in the media. So before I get into that, let's move into the first break of the day.
I was a lost one. I found the right one. I found the right one. Yes, you right now. Yes, you right now that I need. Yeah, we're looking for the lost ones. I was a lost one. I found the right one. I found the right one. Yes, you right now. Yes, you right now that I need. We stay looking for someone to hold when the right one's standing at your door. Open up your heart and say, I believe in what you say, and I promise you will gain much more. Yeah, we're looking for the lost ones. I was a lost one. I found the right one. I found the right one. Yes, you right now. Yes, you right now that I need. Yeah, we're looking for the lost ones. I was a lost one. I found the right one. I found the right one. Yes, you right now. Yes, you right now. 10 years of struggle, 10 years of pain, but I'll finally get to see you no more. Just calling your name, and the ones who wonder who, just open up your eyes. He's waiting for you too. He's not a man in disguise. And the hardest cross to bear, but your heart's not what I wear. To think this effort and this love could overcome the dirty stairs. And it's all because of you. Yeah, it's all because of you. Said it's all because of you. Yeah, I need you. Looking for someone to hold when the right one's standing at your door. Open up your heart and say, I believe in what you say, and I promise you will gain much more. Yeah, we're looking for the lost ones. I was a lost one. I found the right one. I found the right one. Yes, you right now. Yes, you right now that I need. Yeah, we're looking for the lost ones. I was a lost one. I found the right one. I found the right one. Yes, you right now. Yes, you right now that I need.
Okay, so let's get into today's word study, and today's word study is going to be on, it's the practical word study. How do you put the words of God into action? And I think the one thing that's been really hitting my heart the hardest out of all these messages over the last month is about preaching, testifying, and evangelism, right? That's part of the theme of this year too, and we've lost a lot over the last 4 years, right? The message is like, if you preach to many people, then many people will come. And, you know, this is the year of preaching the gospel, testifying for this history. And what can we do in a practical sense at every level, right? Because, you know, we have SS, we have middle school, high school, campus, career, early career, and then we have like late career, and then we have like family department, stuff like that too. There is so much for us to, you know, to really try to figure out how can we testify, how can we be those that preach. And I would say that you'd have to kind of break it down into two different levels, which is direct and indirect. Not everyone can do direct, but everyone can do indirect, right? So what is direct? Direct is going out on campus, going out finding people and preaching and testifying. Well, you know, technically everyone could do it, but not everyone's going to be able to do as much. But direct is like you're spending tons of time outside meeting people, finding them, trying to evangelize them, connect them, teach them, lecturing, all these other different things like this, right? And then you have like indirect, and I would say indirect is not so much by what you say, but it's kind of the life that you live. right? It's how we're living our lives, right? And indirect is for everyone. Indirect evangelism is, are you living the proper life? Are you living the life that testifies that you are a person of God? That when people look at you, they see someone kind, they see someone loving, someone generous, someone who's reliable, someone they're like, wow, this is a great person. I want to be friends with it. Someone who is the light in the darkness, right? And I would say everyone can testify and evangelize at that level, no matter what, right? And that's why I would say, like, when it comes down to, let's look at each department, right? Let's look at the SS, split them up into middle school and high school. Middle school, it's a little bit, at least the kids are a little bit more pure. At least they're more pure than high school, right? And I would say, yeah, the indirect is huge, what kind of a person you are, how you live your life. But I would say if there's anything that you wanted to share, I would start simple with Bible stories. Something really simple and easy. Doesn't have to be 30 lessons. Bible stories to share, something a bit more simplified. People talk to their friends about what they learned at church or what this and that. I think Bible stories are probably the easiest and probably the simplest for middle school, right? For them to testify to their friends and such. High school, because it's such an image-driven, mini society that's detached from the world, I think one of the biggest things that you can do is make yourself a good image, right? Like, for instance, when I was in high school, I was known as the Christian kid. I never swore. I never did any bad stuff. I went to church every weekend, right? I was kind of that good Christian boy. And people knew that I was Christian and they would come to me, right? They were in difficulty and trouble. They would come to me. They would ask about church. I would invite them. I was even able to evangelize one of my friends too, because they eventually, they came to the church camp and everything else and they accepted Christ, right? Why? Because they all knew me as that person. And one of the great parts of having that type of image is you want to keep that image, which means that I would think to myself like, hey, I'm known as a Christian kid. I shouldn't do anything bad like this. I shouldn't do anything bad like this. You know what I mean? And I would say that because image is such a big thing, the one thing that kind of made me okay, even though I was a Christian and no one really, that I was like a total sports guy. Captain of the basketball team, captain of the volleyball team, captain of this, captain of that, student council president. Like, I did all the stuff. I was a high achiever, right? So on top of that, people are like, whoa, this guy is, high achieving and he's a Christian and he's a good guy and this and that, right? So when, I think this image thing is a very, very big thing. And in high school, it's a time where, you're trying to find your identity and yourself. And the indirect is so huge, right? When it comes spiritually, your indirect image of who you are, I think it's a big thing. If I was like in high school, look at the Christian clubs, go attend the Christian clubs, go meet people that are similar in faith and stuff. Now, if you confess you're a Christian and people are like making fun of you and bullying you, my biggest advice to you is those are the wrong people to be with, right? They don't like righteousness. They don't like goodness, right? And they don't want anything to do with God, right? You got to find the people that fit you the best, right? For me, it was quite interesting because I had a very strong spiritual support with my family and with my church friends. And in high school, yes, I did go off track for a little bit, but I was really able to come back and do my best. And that's when I came to Providence too. So I say that would be like a good focal point for how to testify in high school. Now, campus, Sunseam says, campus is the golden fishing grounds. It is the hotbed. It is where it is teeming with life. And this is where you go all in. Campus is where you evangelize. Campus is where you meet people. Campus is where you learn to lecture. Campus is where you learn how to connect people. Campus is the place where like you're going to find the vast majority of evangelism happening, right? And that's the place where you're like, yeah, this is great. This is awesome kind of thing. You want to have like campus is a time where I would say you start learning how to lecture. Don't just connect, just start lecturing. Start lecturing, start connecting, start meeting people, go into the Christian clubs, going to here and there. All the campus people, what are they like? They're like free. They're finally free from the grips of their parents and they get that freedom to do what they want, join clubs, make their own decisions. The best time. It is the one place where it's super direct. And this is a place where you can meet, you'll find most of the evangelism actually happening, right? Career department. You have early career. Early career is where you haven't found the actual like career you wanted yet. You're just working. You'll stay at each job maybe 2 to 3 years at a time, right? Work, definitely indirect is the best, right? Being that good person, having that image that you are a church person, this and that, right? And, I would definitely say that in the career world, you got to be the light in the darkness, right? And should you go out and evangelize everyone at work? And the answer is absolutely. But just remember that you don't have to evangelize everyone at once. And you don't want to evangelize everyone, right? You have to find the right people. Who's ready right now? Everyone's going to have their window when they're ready to come to Christ. However, when is the big answer, and not everyone's going to be ready right away. So don't go there to work in the first 2 weeks just trying to evangelize every single person in your work. The problem with work is it's the exact same people you see every single day, and if they say no, you're done. You have no one else to talk to. Make friends, meet people, be the light in the darkness, and you'll find the right people every once in a while, right? One thing I do think is a cool thing that I've seen happen is people starting Christian clubs inside their, like not clubs, but Christian, like they'll do Bible studies at work, right? On their lunch breaks, they'll meet for 20 minutes, talk about the Bible and scriptures and stuff and pray for each other. I've seen that and that's kind of cool. I wouldn't do 30 lessons and I wouldn't do the Bible study at all, right? I wouldn't, right? Because just because they're coming for a Christian Bible study or like, gathering for prayer doesn't mean that they're ready for the word, right? So I would say it's better to be the example. Be open about your faith, right? Bring them together if they want to do a prayer time together. That's kind of cool too. But I would say that is the difference between campus and career. Now, if you do go into like you finally found your career and such, right? That means you're going to be in that place for the rest of your working life, which basically means everything is long-term evangelism. Very, very long term. And one thing you do have to consider is, and this is something that you have to think about is, if you don't evangelize, if something goes wrong and they start to slander, they're going to be slandering you every day at work and they're going to be talking about you at work too. And that's part of the risk assessment you have to make, right? Last but not least is families. JS and families and blessed families. If you have children, little children, focus on the family. Focus on your family because sometimes said evangelism for a family is having children, right? So if you've never evangelized someone ever in your life, having a child is evangelism, right? Focus on the family, help them out, testify to them, testify to your children, testify through your actions to your children, testify about Sunstream, testify about the Bible, testify about church, take up missions in church too whenever you can. Right? Because just because your family doesn't mean you can't participate. I've seen plenty of families participate in praise, in choir. Choir is awesome to participate in for families too. It's a minimal amount of time, but you're actually part of the service, a big part of the service, right? Whether it's cleaning, praise, choir, help with taking care of the kids, whatever it is, there's a lot of things that you can do. And of course, when time moves forward and your kids finally go to school, this is when you can help out church a little bit better. I've seen some blessed families that are great at lecturing too. And I'm like, wow, like that's amazing. They have kids, but when their kids are away, they come to church to lecture and help out with evangelism, stuff like that too. Or they'll take care of others, right, inside the church too. And that kind of leads me into the biggest thing of indirect evangelism I think that we can all participate in. And I'd say the biggest part of indirect evangelism is the culture we create at church. What culture are we creating at church? And I think that's very, very interesting, right? Like I would say that, hey, we have to create the culture or atmosphere of salvation where newcomers or anyone comes to the church and they're melted and they're like, wow, the people are really amazing here. They feel comfortable. They feel at home. And, that is part of evangelism. Part of evangelism is you testify through your actions. You testify by your love towards people. You testify by being united with each other. You testify by taking care of each other. And when you take care of each other, don't just talk about like, oh, how's pre-dawn? How's the Sunday message? Talk about life. There's so many things in life we got to talk about. How's your family? How's your extended family? How are your children? How are things with your husband or wife? How are things at work? How are things personal? Like, there's so many things to talk about that we can just really build such a great atmosphere where people feel closer to each other, and that it makes an atmosphere of salvation where people will come and they'll just be like, wow, I want to be part of this, right? I really do. And this is like one of the problems that you might find is like some people will try to evangelize through sports, and it's great camaraderie through sports, but when they come to church, it's kind of like dead, right? And we have to be those that kind of take it to the next level. It's like, no, we have to live the proper life, indirectly testify and evangelize through our actions where people say, I want to be at this church. I love this. This church is amazing. I never felt like this before. Wow, I feel so welcome, you know? And I think that's something that we should be considering as part of testifying and preaching the gospel. So there are 2 points. There's direct and indirect. And I would say those are like different ways that we can do it. And I hope it's something that can kind of make it more practical, and you'll be able to realize and understand a lot better through this conversation we had right now. If you have anything you want to add to this, go ahead, put in the comments. You can send me an audio or a video too. Okay? So there it is, guys. That is today's practical word study. Hope you guys really enjoyed that, gained some insight from that too, which means we're going to move into the second break of, before we get to Provi in the media, we'll get into the second break of the day. All right, so let's get into our final segment today. There's going to be two articles that I'm going to go over, right? And one of them is massive. It's huge. I'm very thankful to Pastor Baker and his wife that sent me this article. It's huge, guys. It has to do with the Supreme Court, and it directly affects Sunseem's trial. Directly. Okay? So the first one is kind of about illegal sale. You know Wolmyeongsu, the medicinal water that we sell from Wolmyeongdong? So there is like a trial that's going to go on about illegal sale. So there's like the prohibition of sales of water. And of course, we're selling the medicinal water. And the claim is that we have made, I don't know how much billions would be, like we've made like millions of dollars on the sale of medicinal water. I'm not sure how possible it is to make millions of dollars off of it, but that's kind of the claim that's happening right now. It's under, like, it's basically, there's a Drinking Water Management Act, and what they said was done was illegal. And I don't have the full report on this right now, and we're just waiting to see. I'm going to try to get more information on this too, okay? But the big one I want to talk about right now is what just happened in the Supreme Court on January 18th. This is gigantic, guys, and you can see God working already. So here's a title, quote unquote, victim statement is consistent, guilty. Now, what does that mean? Now, this is for sex crime verdicts. As long as the victim statement is consistent, then the person is guilty. And the Supreme Court puts a brake on this. What does that mean? Until now, in most cases of sex crime trials, a person was found guilty if the victim statement was consistent, even if there was no clear physical evidence. As a result of Channel A's coverage, this is where it's coming, Channel A, it was confirmed that the Supreme Court recently ruled that a guilty verdict should not be based solely on the victim's statement. The Supreme Court ruling, differing in its interpretation of gender sensitivity, is expected to have an impact on future trials related to sexual crimes. In 2018, during the time of former Supreme Court Chief Justice Kim Myung-soo, the Supreme Court issued a ruling that emphasized so-called gender sensitivity. It said that if the victim's statement is consistent and there is no motive to make a false, unfavorable statement, we should not rashly judge it as unreliable. However, earlier this month, the Supreme Court directly refuted that ruling when it ruled on a separate sexual harassment case. It was pointed out that the victim's statement should not be accepted as evidence without restrictions, or that the victim should not be judged unconditionally guilty based on the statement. It was criticized that convicting a perpetrator just because he or she cannot refute the crime when there is only the victim's statement and no other evidence is in direct contradiction to the principle of presumption of innocence under the Constitution. The legal community estimates that this ruling will have an impact on future sex crime trials, right? One attorney said there was a tendency to unconditionally acknowledge the credibility of the sexual crime victim's statement. In a criminal trial where the principle of presumption of innocence is applied, a finding of innocence is not possible. A current chief judge said, "What I was worried about after the retirement of a female Supreme Court justice has become a reality," and expressed concern that this ruling would lead to a tendency to unfairly doubt victim statements. A Supreme Court official explained that both gender sensitivity and the principle of presumption of innocence must be taken into consideration, and it cannot be said that the weight is tilted towards one side. Tell me how huge that is, guys. In sexual crimes, you can't just solely rely on a victim statement if there is no evidence. This is just recently, guys, within the last 4 days, the Supreme Court has judged on this and overturned what a Supreme Court justice said in the past. So now, think about this. Eventually, what we're going to see in the future, well, what's going to happen in 2 weeks, Sunseem's first appellate trial. And then after that, if it doesn't work out, it's going to go to the Supreme Court, and they just made this ruling in 2024. So this is something, guys, keep praying because things are happening. Right? Even though this has nothing to do with Sunseem. Remember, why did they change this rule? They changed this rule because of a current sexual harassment case that happened in Korea, and they saw that it was unfair and it wasn't constitutional. And these are things that are opening up, and we have to open our eyes and say, God, remember, what God said in this week's message is what? He said, Don't judge my almighty omnipotence by human standards or by human power. We have to understand that God is so different. God is so much more powerful. Like even the spirit is 10,000 times more powerful than the body, right? And if you judge God's power according to the physical, like something physical, then you'll never understand how powerful God is. God, guys, this is awesome. Keep praying. Let's see if more and more of these miracles are going to happen during the year. Okay? So there it is, guys. Super happy and excited about this one piece of news, and hope it's something that gives you guys a lot more hope for the future of this year also. Okay? So there it is. That is the end of Provi and the Media. Hope you guys really super awesome enjoyed this. Have an amazing and awesome Tuesday, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know